Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk, now works at the law office of Goodman, Lieber, Kurtzberg, and Holloway, and the partner she reports directly to is Holden Holloway himself. But you may wonder, is he a slimy sleazeball of an attorney? Is he a bloodthirsty equity partner? Does he have dangerous ties to superhuman villainy that goes beyond the typical client his firm would take on? Is he even a secret villain himself? And does the Disney Plus depiction of Holloway and law office corporate culture dovetail well with real life? Well, since I've been both a Marvel Comics fan since 1986 and a real lawyer since 1998, you're in the right place. So we're going to talk about all of that right now. Welcome back to the Mama Saga, where this Marvel-loving mama is a mother and lawyer by day, but breaks down comic book sagas, movies, and shows like She-Hulk by night. Subscribe to this channel so you can join me for the after-party live streams following each episode of She-Hulk Attorney at Law on the days that they drop. So, spoiler alert, of course, if you haven't seen the first 2 episodes of She-Hulk Attorney at Law yet, we'll discuss some things about it, some plot points a bit, so be forewarned, okay? Alright, so first, let's acknowledge the fact that Holden Holloway is a Rainmaker. Now, if you're not an attorney yourself, you may be viewing the 9-episode Disney Plus miniseries She-Hulk Attorney at Law through a very different lens than I do, and that's okay. Unlike a lot of other Marvel and or comic book theorists, however, I am an attorney myself. I've even managed a law office for nearly 2 years before I went out on my own in 2015. So I don't just have the capacity to discuss the comic book sagas versus the Marvel Studios or Disney Plus sagas, but I also can give you the attorney-based vantage point about what attorneys like Jennifer Walters and or Holden Holloway do. Here in this video, we're focusing on Holden Holloway. Now, do I think that Holden is slimy simply for creating a superhuman law division of GLK&H? Nope. I mean, just like any other wise partner or managing partner or equity partner, how can he be blamed for spotting societal trends and moving with the times, right? I mean, we're talking about large top-shelf firms creating entire divisions for things like cryptocurrency, like they'd have a cannabis law division, that sort of thing. So if superhumans were to appear in our real life as opposed to in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you know that sooner or later big firms would be creating their own superhuman law division. Why? It's smart marketing. It's a great way to drum up new business. It's an effective way to differentiate yourself from other law firms who are your competitors. And it gives your firm, if you're Holloway, a way in which to not only have great word of mouth on your side, because that does work even today, but to also put a more unique spin on your firm and its offerings in terms of content marketing, to make it stand out from the competition. I did a video recently entitled Attorney Reacts to She-Hulk Trailer GLK&H Commercial, which not only walked through how authentic to the legal field this otherwise fake advertisement is, but also I point out the huge Easter egg that's tucked away in there, which forecasts where She-Hulk's entire career is going in the MCU. If you missed that video, make sure you check it out. Now, so if you think Holden Holloway is slimy for riding a trend that has to do with the increasing emergence of superhumans in his world, Earth 616, well, not really. He's just a wise marketer drumming up legitimate business from a niche that at some point or another would be in need of his services anyway. That's one very legitimate version of being a rainmaker in the legal world. Now, we also need to acknowledge that Holden Holloway is a manager. Holden Holloway isn't just some named partner who's off in a corner office and out of the spotlight. He's an attorney who is still practicing and also is out there actively recruiting and hiring new associates for his firm. Remember, he was in the courtroom when Jennifer Walters was going toe-to-toe with one of his associates as they were trying a case, representing opposite sides, of course. And he spotted Jennifer Walters go from talented human attorney to powerful superhuman who retains her composure, controls a crazy situation, and then goes right back to human attorney form so she can give her closing statement to the courtroom, all without skipping a beat. He's impressed by her and recruits her to his firm. And let me tell you something. This mimics real life. Once I got my first job as an associate, I never had to look for work again. I had more offers thrown at me through the years than I ever accepted. Why? I was a litigator, so people saw me do my thing in court, just like Holloway saw Jennifer, and they could tell how the judges responded to me, how juries responded to me, how I managed myself no matter what attorney was across the courtroom from me. I mean, my work spoke for itself. So if someone needed a new associate, they'd think of me and make me an offer, sometimes on the spot. So Holden Holloway isn't a slimy attorney simply because he poached talent on the fly. I mean, in Jennifer's case, she'd lost her job, but he admitted GLK&H did what they had to do to win the case, even if it meant getting the case declared as a mistrial because she hulked out in front of the jury and saved their lives. But that aside, there are lots of partners who hire people who once served as opposing counsel. There's nothing slimy about that. When Holden hires She-Hulk, the first case he wants her to take on is securing the parole of Emil Blonsky, the Abomination. Like any wise managing attorney, he matches Jennifer up with a case that actually is a good fit. Her representation of Blonsky can benefit that client a great deal if done properly. He's completely well within his right to acknowledge to She-Hulk that by taking the high-profile case pro bono, meaning for free, it will benefit his firm, especially his newly minted Superhuman Law division. It's a smart business move, not a slimy one. And believe it or not, it really is not slimy that he asked She-Hulk to represent the Abomination in the first place, even though he attempted to kill her cousin, Bruce Banner, many years ago. And the fact that the Hulk's cousin is representing a former nemesis of his can speak volumes to a parole board, a jury, a judge, nearly anyone who could ever come into contact with a case like this one. It's a shrewd business move that will add to the excitement and the attention that the case will receive from the public. As long as a case is properly taken on by Jennifer, who at first thinks that there is a conflict of interest, but again, that's not necessarily the case, and it actually can be remedied in a very ethical way too. In a recent video of mine entitled She-Hulk's Conflict of Interest, I predicted before the first episode even came out that while the trailers were making it seem that Holden Holloway was being a slimy lawyer by seeming to be unconcerned by Jennifer's apparent conflict of interest in terms of representing the Abomination, well, I predicted that there was a legitimate workaround to be had as long as things were done properly on all sides of the equation. Jennifer's, Bruce's, and Emil's. And now that the second episode in the series has dropped, you know what? Turns out I was right. Holden is not automatically a sleazeball lawyer because he wanted She-Hulk to represent the Abomination. He actually had a lot of the legwork done for her up front before he even, as a managing partner, otherwise properly assigned her the case. He had the paperwork done and encouraged her to meet with the proposed new client before she made up her mind, all knee-jerk fashion. So far so good. But now we have to consider Holden Holloway's ties to villainy. Now, whether or not Holden Holloway has his own direct connection to villainy in the MCU remains to be seen. I'm thinking not, but we'll see. Up front, I'll say that simply because Holden wants Jennifer to represent superhumans as both plaintiffs and defendants isn't sleazy. Plenty of firms do this all the time. Some firms, I grant you, do plaintiffs only work or defendants only work in the private sector or insurance defense work, and they represent one side of the equation to the exclusion of the other. But if you're a layperson, you need to understand that if a firm is open to representing the interests of an individual, regardless of whether they assume the role of plaintiff or defendant in a case, well, without more, it doesn't automatically mean that anything is bad or somehow amiss. However, Holden Holloway in the Marvel comic book saga had a granddaughter who became a villain by the name of Southpaw. In the comics, Mr. Holloway himself wasn't a villain, but he created the Superhuman Law Division specifically to protect his granddaughter. And then sure, take on additional clients, but the main reason that division was created was in order to have She-Hulk defend Southpaw in a criminal trial. And while she was awaiting trial, Southpaw had to remain in the custody of GLK&H. Well, really under the supervision of She-Hulk. Even after Southpaw escaped custody and went into hiding, Holden Holloway spent time and money tracking her down so that he could be reunited with her once more. And that hardly sounds like he was a villain to me. And in fact, in the Marvel comic book saga, it was none other than Holden Holloway who convinced She-Hulk to join the Living Tribunal's agents of universal law known as the Magistrati. He didn't want her to miss out on such an opportunity and therefore encouraged She-Hulk to be the best, most well-rounded and experienced lawyer that she could be, even if it meant that she would be away from the firm for months. I mean, everyone's boss should be this supportive, am I right? So it would seem, so far anyway, that this will be the direction that the MCU's version of Holden Holloway's character arc is going. He's a busy equity partner who's still actively practicing law while he's managing a law firm, recruiting and nurturing new talent, and growing his firm's stable of clientele. He is also a mentor to Jennifer Walters, attorney at law, and he will likely also going to be revealed to be the grandfather of a supervillain that his mentee She-Hulk will have to work to save from utter ruin. At the end of the day, Holden Holloway won't likely be showcased as a villain. He just may be depicted as a grandfather whose heart is broken because a loved one of his ends up being a villain instead. And this, if written properly, this can be a great storyline for us to follow. Anyway, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok and subscribe to the Mama Saga for more comic book saga breakdowns. Thanks for watching. See you next time.